Joining us now is the chairman of the Republican Party, Reince Priebus, who is at the party headquarters here in Washington this morning. Mr. Chairman, I want to ask you, Donald Trump says he's going to wait to see how the Republican Party treats him. How do things look from your end? I mean, how's he treating the party? He was quoted this week as saying, "I'm not sure which is worse, dealing with the party people or dealing with the press." That's a low blow being compared to us.
Right. It sure is, John. Look, he's being treated fairly, and look, I think some of this is posturing. I've been talking about this particular issue, I think, for about 9 months now. If candidates make commitments to the values and the principles of our party, we expect them to keep it. If they don't, then all they need to do is just tell us. And look, I think if candidates don't want to be loyal to the party that they seek the nomination from, I think they make it more difficult for themselves, because it's actually the party and our voters that are voting in our party primaries that choose the nominee. So it only makes sense to be true to the values and principles of our party if you want to be the nominee of our party.
Part of this agreement that he's made is not just, it's almost a contract with the party to get information from the party about supporters and that kind of thing. If he said he didn't want to support the Republican Party anymore, would you cut off whatever the party gives to him as a candidate?
Well, if any candidate actually declared that they don't want to support the party, of course we would. But that's not what's happened here. I mean, this is a hypothetical, and it's also something that is more of an answer of we'll wait and see. I mean, even in regard to the other candidates' comments, no one's broken any pledge. No one's broken their commitment to our party. But at this point, it's a bunch of talk, and we'll wait and see.
You had a meeting with Donald Trump this week. Do you think he's familiar with the whole delegate process, the various stages, as familiar as he should be with it?
Well, I don't think the candidates themselves have to know every little detail about how selection of delegates occurs and what the percentages are in each of these states, but the team needs to know that information, and they need to obviously work within the confines of the rules that are laid out. It's just like any, when I was playing a board game with the kids last night, and we have all done it. The first thing you do is open the box and take out the rules and read them and try to figure out how to play the game. Obviously, rules matter, and we adhere to rules and principles in our party, unlike the Democrats, and we respect the rules. And so we're going to respect the rules of our party.
Donald Trump says in Louisiana he thinks that they have not followed the rules. Do you see any evidence there that that's the case?
I don't, but I don't know every detail of what happened in Louisiana, but what I do know is that Donald Trump and Ted Cruz are receiving the exact amount of delegates that they were awarded based on the outcome of Louisiana. Those delegates are bound to the candidates, so they have to vote for the candidate. Now, the chase is on for unbound delegates, and so when Marco Rubio dropped out, he had unbound delegates in Louisiana. That's when those campaigns have to get into those states and make the case to the state party and all those particular people running for those slots. And from what I understand, that's where the argument is.
All right, we're going to have to take a quick commercial break, Mr. Chairman. We'll be right back with more in a moment. Mr. Chairman, I want to ask you about the polls which suggest that a majority of voters agree with Donald Trump, which is if he goes to the convention and he has the most delegates, even if he doesn't have the magic number, that he should get the nomination.
Well, that's why we're working really hard at educating folks as to what the rules are. And most of the time, people don't care about the rules of a convention or how nominees are chosen, but there's nothing that's going to change that rule. A majority of delegates is needed, just like it was for Abraham Lincoln in 1860. It's needed today. You have to have a majority. Everything in America is decided on a majority. It's no different than electing a judge, a governor, a president, based on electoral college majority, but a majority matters in America, and you have to have a majority, and it is a magic number because it's 50% plus one. That's not going to change.
As part of this education process, though, why does there need to be this second stage? People think, well, the voting took place. That's all that needs to happen. Why is there this second stage where everybody goes to a convention and talks about it one more time?
Well, you know, a long time ago, what used to happen is delegates would just run for office or run for the position within each of the states, and they'd show up at the convention, and they'd vote for whoever they wanted to. But somewhere along the line, John, someone decided that, you know, wouldn't it be great if we expanded the reach of our party and we had contests and primaries in each of the states, and we would bind the vote for these delegates for 1 or 2 ballots. And then after a couple ballots, people could go back to the old days of voting the way they wanted. It's sort of a hybrid of that today, which is we have these contests, the votes happen, the votes bind delegates, the delegates are then chosen in the states, those delegates are bound to the outcome in most cases from those votes in those states, and they go to convention. That's what we're doing here today. It really isn't that complicated, but if you're not familiar with it, it just sounds very different, and that's why we have to be out in front. We've got a few months to try to educate as many people as possible.
There's been a lot of talk this week in Republican circles about if Donald Trump is the nominee, he would have special challenges in the general election with 2 groups, with women voters and then also with Hispanics. As somebody who cares about the health of the party, how much of a challenge, a special challenge, would Donald Trump be as the party nominee?
Well, look, I mean, every candidate has positives, and every candidate have challenges that you have to overcome in the general election. You know, but the fact is, Donald Trump has also brought in millions of new voters to our party. We're ahead of Democrats on registration. We've had a 70% turnout increase. I mean, some of these things are historic for our party. You look at the Democrats, John, they're in the ditch. And what about Hillary Clinton? Have you seen her numbers with women? I mean, some of this stuff is pretty startling. I mean, I understand that we've got some drama on our side of the aisle that we're going to have to contend with, and we'll be prepared to, like never before. But I think you look at the Democrats, I think they're in for a fiasco, especially if Comey comes in and indicts Hillary Clinton, and they have an open convention, and who knows, I've heard people talking about Joe Biden coming back into the fold. So, look, there is drama, but we're prepared, and we're going to win, and we're going to retake the White House in November.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, Mr. Chairman. Thanks so much for being with us.
You bet.